This is Joel Webbon from Texas. He's a pastor and Christian nationalist, and he is the founder of Right Response Ministries, and he is opposed to Epic City. He wants to ban mosques. He doesn't want any mosques allowed in Texas, and he is a Christian nationalist. This is his latest tweet. I found this through Right Wing Watch. The young men are waking up. Women will learn to have a quiet and gentle spirit, or they will learn to be alone. Deus Vult, meaning God wills it. How did we learn that? Who taught us that Deus Vult means God wills it? Pete Hegseth, our Christian nationalist defense chief, who has a tattoo. Among his many neo-Nazi tattoos, one of them is Deus Vult, God wills it. This was chanted by the Crusaders when they were massacring Muslims in the Holy Land, Deus Vult, and it's become a neo-Nazi slogan, Deus Vult. Women, says the pastor, must have to learn to have a quiet spirit because we're sick of paying them $75,000 to shut up about these rape allegations. That's basically Deus Vult. That's basically the message. Women. So these people, Pastor Doug, who runs Pete Hegseth's religious community in Tennessee, has openly said that women and Muslims should not be allowed to vote. He has said democracy doesn't work. These are the core values of Pastor Doug Wilson, that the Confederacy was better because it was Christian-based, and that slavery was mutual affection between slaveholders and slaves. This is what these people believe, and you gotta listen to them. Right Wing Watch found this. This is Pastor, what's his name? Joel Webbon. He's a Texas pastor. He is a racist. He told white parents to give their kids the talk, warning them that blacks are 30 times more likely to hurt you than white people. He calls slavery a blessing for black Americans because they never would have discovered Christianity. That's what he believes. Here he is, Right Wing Watch found him talking.
Like I just think so long as we have democracy coupled with universal suffrage, you will constantly be going against the grain. You're constantly going to have half of the population voting for temperance, tolerance.
Yes, you can't.
Suicidal empathy.
Suicidal empathy. Universal suffrage, meaning everybody being allowed to vote, is going to result in suicidal empathy. And he's a Christian, and we know what Christ thought about empathy for others, right? This is what they believe.
My point, I guess, is that I don't think you're going to get people to vote away democracy.
Yeah. So how do you get rid of democracy? He's saying, I don't believe in democracy. This is what they don't say out loud, but this is what they believe. They don't hate Washington, D.C. They hate our founding fathers. They hate the idea of people voting. You cannot trust the American people to make wise decisions. And he says, we're not going to vote away our democratic freedoms. Well, I don't know. Trump got elected using dog whistles to say, vote for me and you'll be less free. More from Pastor Webbons.
But my point is that I'm agreeing with you. I think that it has to be taken. I think that men, virtuous, ambitious, masculine men, have to climb the ladder of power.
Yeah.
And forcefully take away from the people that which is their detriment.
Take away, strong masculine men have to take away from the people that which is their detriment. You cannot trust the American people with democracy. That is what Pete Hegseth believes. That's what Pastor Doug believes. This is not rhetorical hyperbole. We've been over this. They do not believe in democracy. And you see, there are people sitting on the Supreme Court who do not believe everyone should vote. And I have had conversations with my liberal, democratic, Harvard-educated, Ivy League-educated friends. And these liberal, democratic douchebags, I've asked them, do you believe in universal suffrage? And they say, well, not everybody should vote. Not everybody is smart enough to vote. So one of the conversations we need to have is, how much democracy do you believe in? There are a lot of Democrats who don't believe in too much democracy. The professional managerial class, the lawyers, the doctors, the hyper-educated children of the upper middle class. They go to private schools. They don't believe everyone is entitled to the vote. They don't believe in democracy. Here is Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski, Defense Appropriations Committee, they were going over the budget for defense appropriations. On Tuesday, Pete Hegseth was asked about a war powers resolution. Here is Lisa Murkowski gently asking Pete Hegseth about the war powers resolution, which by law needed to be introduced by May 1st.
An authorization of use of military force. I understand that the administration has made clear that you believe that the actions taken thus far fall under the president's Article 2 authority. I think reasonable people have disagreed about the boundaries of presidential war powers for a long time. But the war powers resolution is pretty clear here. It requires the president to terminate hostilities within 60 days, absent congressional authorization. I think it's important that we in Congress actually assert our own role and responsibility to this. That 60-day clock expired April 28th. And then on the 1st, the administration sent letters to congressional leaders asserting that the hostilities has ended. But I think where there is confusion is when the president says hostilities have ended, we still have 15,000 troops that are forward deployed, more than 20 warships in an active naval blockade. CENTCOM has redirected 61 commercial vessels, disabled tankers. In other words, it doesn't appear that hostilities have ended. And so the question to you is whether or not the administration has considered or had intended to seek an authorization of use of military force from the Congress.
Senator, our view is that should the president make the decision to recommence, that we would have all the authorities necessary to do so.
Do you think that it would be helpful to the president if it was made clear that, in fact, the Congress did provide an AUMF?
I think the president, our view is that he has all the authorities he needs under Article 2.
You don't need the War Powers Act, unconstitutional, according to Pete Hegseth. Article 2 of the Constitution spells out what the president can and can't do. And according to Pete Hegseth, even though the Constitution says war powers are Article 1, only Congress can declare war. Pete Hegseth, a fascist who doesn't believe in democracy, just said, we believe Article 2 gives the president all the power to decide when and if we go to war. By the way, anybody who says AUMF is your enemy, any politician who says AUMF is an MFer, authorized use of military force. That's what it means. In order to invade Iraq, George W. Bush got an authorized use of military force, AUMF. In order to fight Afghanistan, which didn't attack us on 9/11, George W. Bush got an authorized use of military force to fight a war on global terror, which is still in effect. Congress continues to renew that authorized use of military force to fight a global war on terror, which Hegseth uses as the excuse to do extrajudicial illegal bombing campaigns in the Caribbean and Eastern Pacific. He's saying we have the authority to do that based on this 25-year-old authorized use of military force to fight a global war on terror that was passed in the immediate aftermath of 9/11. So Senator Murkowski, when she says AUMF, you are an MFer. To glibly refer to that, which is essentially a war declaration where our men and women come home if they're lucky, wounded, PTSD, some without faces, some without, and you glibly call it an AUMF. Those are declarations of war, UMF. That's your attempt to keep the American people out of the process, because most people don't know what an AUMF means, you MFer. That's what they do. They try to make you feel stupid. So you go, AUMF, I guess, all of these people. Okay. Well, Article 2 of the Constitution spells out all the responsibilities of the president. He does not have war powers. It's Congress. And the War Powers Act says you can go 60 days, have your war. After 60 days, you have to get a authorized use of military force, a war authorization from Congress, or it's against the law. But we got geniuses like Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump fighting this war that's going so well. Let's go back to Trey Yingst from Fox News. You just got off the phone again with Donald Trump. How's the war going?
U.S. pressure that continues as part of the American blockade of Iranian ports. President Trump called that blockade the greatest military maneuver in history.
The greatest. Starving millions of people, increasing gas prices 50%, the greatest military move. What is this military? Other than the oil companies and Vladimir Putin getting record profits. Here is Sebastian Gorka. He currently works in the White House as deputy assistant to the president. He's the senior director of counterterrorism at the National Security Council. He is the counterterrorism czar. Here he is on News Nation, I believe it was Sunday, being asked, well, what's the timetable here? Donald Trump told us this war was going to last a week, then 4 weeks. What's going on? Here is Sebastian Gorka saying, the reason the war is lasting so long is we did too good a job.
We did hear a much shorter time frame at the beginning of this, right? Was this an optimistic take, or how do we reconcile the original timeline with what we're dealing with now?
Well, look, there is the ancient aphorism, every plan lasts until first contact with the enemy. But there is a very simple answer to your question. We've just been too effective, along with our colleagues in Jerusalem that have effected numerous persona strikes. We have absolutely destroyed the leadership, the traditional leadership. Take this one metric, Chris. Where is this vaunted new Ayatollah? Where is Mojtaba? Oh, really? Is he in charge? How come we haven't seen hide nor hair of him? Not one still photograph, let alone a video statement. This is a regime in ultimate collapse at the top. As a result, it makes communicating and getting that final deal, that acquiescence, that surrender, a little bit more complicated, but rest assured, it is coming imminently.
So go take Hormuz, Gorka. If the leadership is fractured, you've decapitated them and they're powerless, go take Hormuz. Go in and take the uranium if they're so powerless. That's just a talking point they came up with. But Trump doesn't want to make a deal because he can't get a deal as good as Obama's, and he wants to keep Hormuz closed for as long as possible for the oil companies and Putin. And, he'll do it until he'll do it for another 3 months. He'll keep Hormuz shut for another 3 months. And the oil companies will have gotten their money's worth out of him. And this idea that we've decapitated their leadership, so they don't know who to deal with. The Iranian leadership is not a cult of personality. It's a bureaucracy. They've been set up since 1979 for this eventuality. You can decapitate Hezbollah the way Netanyahu did. They regroup. They get new leaders. They're decentralized. The Iranian leadership is decentralized. It's kind of like a states' rights kind of thing. All the power is not vested in one human being. Other people can do each other's jobs. Nobody is irreplaceable. As Charles de Gaulle famously said at a graveyard filled with soldiers, he says, this place is filled with indispensable men. He pointed to all the generals and he said, all of these people were indispensable. We couldn't win the war without them. Well, they died during the war, and somehow we were able to. There's no such thing as an indispensable leader, unless you're a fascist and you want to and you believe in cults of personality, which Gorka does, Trump does. They want us to believe that the Ayatollah Khamenei and Khomeini and Khamenei's son, that they are the fascistic leaders of Iran. Well, they did have, or do have, way too much autocratic theological power, but everybody's replaceable. You can keep killing the leadership, more people will bubble up to the surface. Michael Banks, the federal government's border patrol chief, quit on Thursday after reports that he visited prostitutes on overseas trips. Banks, before Trump appointed him, ran Operation Lone Star, Texas Governor Greg Abbott's border initiative to round up migrants in Texas and then put them on buses, airplanes heading for California, New York, and Martha's Vineyard. It was the height of cruelty. Whistleblowers are now accusing Banks of bragging about his sexual tourism, trips he took to Colombia and Thailand. Now, because prostitutes in those countries are most likely to be victims of human trafficking, multiple Border Patrol agents stepped forward, complaining that Banks was subsidizing the very thing he was tasked with stopping. Border Patrol is part of the Department of Homeland Security, which began an internal investigation into Banks's trips, but that probe was quickly quashed by someone in then Homeland Security Chief Kristi Noem's office.